right, what is up, sports fans? We are back for another episode of The Real and the Rare, and we definitely have a rare one this afternoon, my friends, as we're being joined by combat sports veteran, UFC veteran, and now current BKFC fighter, Miss Jessica Evil Eye. Jessica, appreciate the time as always, my friend.
Of course. Thank you for having me on. Always giving me a place to, talk about my life.
Yeah, we've been doing this since the early days.
Gosh, it's so crazy. When I always do the math and I think about it all, I'm like, wow, my first fight was in 2008, and here we are, in 2025. It's crazy.
And we're back in the combat sports world, and for obviously new network here for me, so we get to kind of tear off the page and start all over again. So obviously, as you were just saying, 2008 was your debut. You made it through some of the dark times, the pre women's in the UFC times. You fought for the title. You had your wins, you've had your losses, you had your cries in between. But I think the more interesting thing is right now. Let's talk about some of the medical stuff that happened with you in between you retiring and now your return back to the combat sports world, because you were in a rough place medically for a few years, and you were basically fighting with basically being half a person, so to speak.
Yeah, what's really crazy is, here we are 3 years now, almost removed from, when I retired from the UFC. But it's also 3 years from the time that, that disgusting parasite left my body, which is really crazy, to think, I fought Jess in Singapore, which is where they think that I contracted the parasite. Somehow I ingested it, which I had 2 food experiences, which where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't eat this. This isn't food. And can remember watching the symptoms and everything change. But, there was a good solid 4 years of my UFC career. I mean, even fighting Valentina, I had that parasite. I was dealing with issues, things that I was trying to go to the UFC for and saying, hey, I need some help. I'm not feeling my best. And, I think that, maybe it's unfortunately where we were in maybe medical treatment or awareness, that now we see more information about parasites. People are more apt to talk about it. And, thank goodness, right before, I'd actually had 2 canceled fights, right? I was supposed to fight KGB and I was supposed to fight Manon, Furiat, right? I was supposed to fight both of them. I had 2 canceled fights. Both were around those times of me getting sepsis, E. coli, and just dealing with, these these health issues, right, that were happening to me. And, I knew something wasn't right. When I started missing weight, when I started having problems managing my weight, and my body started to change, my mentality started to change, that, thank goodness I reached out to the right doctors, found the right people, and, we extracted Perry the parasite from my body. And since then, I've had a full body reform. I'm walking around lighter, my body's changed. I've made a lot of mental health changes because of that. A lot of things that I was going through at times, people might think I'm crazy when I say this, but the ones who know about parasites, there were times that I was like, I just don't feel good, and I couldn't explain it. Granted, I feel like all of us fighters have a little mental health and probably some PTSD, but this was more than that. So when I finally found the right people to believe in me and, believe it, that's when more I've started sharing over the past couple of years of this really did happen. This was something that really happened to me. This wasn't a lie. A 3-foot worm almost coming out your butt dead, that'll make you a believer.
That's it, and it's crazy. You were just sitting there saying, some people they don't want to talk about it. It's like a tap. Listen, we all need to be informed on stuff that's going into our body, regardless if we're talking about food in general. But listen, they tell you can contract something that literally can destroy your metabolism and things like that. And when it messes with you on that level, you don't know what it is. You just you just say I'm tired. I don't feel right. All the things you were saying.
We always chalked it up to training. We just chalked up I'm getting older in the sport. I'm not, recovering as good, right? All of those things.
It's one of those things where like you were just saying, you put it on training, that you're a combat sports athlete, things of that nature, but it's just when you can't put your finger on it, it's just looking back at it now, it's like, man, I was doing all that with basically, something that was literally controlling every aspect of my body.
It was controlling every aspect. It was eating all my nutrients. I mean, there's so much more. I mean, those who are like to go down the rabbit hole and understand about, our food and how other countries, use their food. We travel out of the country as Americans, right? Like I travel out to go to these fights. My body is not, doesn't have the immunity that other people have built from living in those areas. So how naive of us Americans not to think that we could go out of the country, right? Even going to all inclusive to Mexico, right? They say don't drink the water, you're gonna get sick, right? It happens. It can happen anywhere, right? On any time when we go to other countries, and I don't want to get too scientific, but I think that some of the things that I was going through cellularly, my body was a perfect host for that parasite, and it was the perfect time. I was cutting weight, out of the country, stressed out, had all these other things going on personally in my life. On top of that, it was like this parasite was like, hell yeah, perfect host. Let's eat her up, you know? And the crazy thing is it ate my gallbladder. It started to cause other digestive, issues. I no longer can eat eggs or chicken at all. And I loved eggs. I loved it. I can't eat them now because of the reaction it had. It causes burns in my mouth. I get a full allergic reaction to them now.
That's crazy because that's like 90% of the stuff that I eat on a regular basis. I can't imagine sitting there.
Yeah.
Now you're just sitting there saying you have allergic. So how have you had to change your diet? Like what have you had to kind of lean more on to supplement not being able to have chicken, not being able to have eggs, etc.?
Man, I feel like I always joke about, I'm a beef eater. I mean, I eat tons of beef, right? Steak, all the good stuff, that you can get from a cow, right? I can still eat poultry like turkey. But yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. Like there are so many tests out there. When I look at like a fighter, right? And not to knock anybody who's a nutritionist, but dietitians just have that extra bit of knowledge and schooling to understand and the capability to do testing. So when they started doing testing to me, we were able to find out what foods my body liked most and able to narrow it down, right? Like if we said, we got a job, right? Like, Steve, we got a job we got to do, and you got to bring your 5 best tools. You're gonna find out what the 5 best tools are: a hammer, a nail. It might be a tape gun, right? Or or a tape measure. Like you're gonna look at these things that you need for the job. You're not gonna bring everything to the table because you just don't need it. So when I look at food now, I realize that instead of me looking about what I can't have, look at it what is best for me to have. Right. So we were able to narrow it down that way to being able to be like, Jess, you can have as much food as you want, but these foods your bodies are going to like better. I mean, it kind of goes down to what Gary Brecka is doing for Dana and saying, hey, look, we're going to manipulate your food on top of these workouts, on top of all these other awesome mechanisms, peptides, waters, fasting, and we're going to make your body a well-oiled machine. Right. So that's really what it's been about, mostly with that. And supplementing, as much as I'll say this, I post it on my story all the time. Every fighter should be taking creatine. Every human should be taking creatine, but every fighter should be ingesting creatine regularly for their brain, their body, and their body, health.
And it's like now, obviously, going through all that, how different is it being performing, training, things like that? Has that changed over the last 3 years?
Well, gosh, the first year and a half from, I mean, you've been a long time follower and friend of mine. I was not dealing with retirement well. I found myself in a very dark place, mentally, physically, financially, spiritually. If there was any of the boxes you needed to check off, you could check them off for me. I got myself in a really dark place that fitness wasn't anything I was doing. I was only eating the clean foods that I'd already known from the test that we had done. It wasn't until, I finally made the decision that, hey, you know what? Ohio is no longer serving me. I'm not happy here. There's a lot of bad influence. There's a lot of things that kind of harbor a lot of childhood trauma for me that I thought, hey, going back there after I retired, being there with my old fight team, like it would be energizing to me, and it wasn't. So I just like was still dealing from, the Parasite came out May of 2022. I retired July of 2022, went through the worst set of depression in 2022 till finally 2023. I seeked out even more help, right? More nutritional help, more mental health help, to finally making the decision. I'm moving to Florida. I'm going to go down to Florida and be by the beach, allow myself to live a life that, would be, again, went to real estate school. I got my real estate license, got my life insurance, and still practicing life insurance on the side. So I know the importance of it. But I did all these things, and it was just like I still wasn't feeling my best self. I was still feeling like, there was still something, I could do. Well, I started dabbling in psychedelics and using mushrooms to help heal the brain and realizing, what kind of a medicine it really was. And oddly enough, November of 2024, so I was here in Florida already, I had an eighth of mushrooms that I'd been saving. And I was like, you know what? God will tell me, the world, the universe is going to tell me when I need my medicine. It's just where I've been at. I'd done a couple of their spiritually guided ones with shamans and, people really helping me heal through things that I was like, these mushrooms will speak to me when I need it. And it's going to sound kind of crazy. And I actually haven't told this story to anybody else. I just said Bare Knuckle called me, but I was basically holding these mushrooms. I prayed over them and said, God, please help me figure out what it is I'm supposed to be doing right now, because I don't feel like I'm living my best life. I know life insurance can offer me a great financial, benefit if I keep working hard at it, but I'm just not happy. I get a call later on from my manager saying, hey, Jess, how much would it take for you to consider doing bare knuckle? And, I threw out some astronomical number, but I was like, but I would settle for this, I would settle for this opportunity. And, sure as shit, here we are finally making that debut, June 21st of 2015. I'm making my return so close to that retirement date.
Yeah.
But, we're finally making that return.
And that's the crazy part too, because I think you posted about this. Your UFC debut was in Texas, and now you're coming back to Texas, coming full circle for your BKFC debut, and and reuniting with this knucklehead, Mr. Conor McGregor too.
He's so fun. I mean, everybody already knows what they know, publicly about Conor, but he's such a great guy. I mean, people get sometimes the misconception, at least how he's been to me. He's been nothing but respectful, a gentleman, extremely happy. That's the first time he had seen me, and he was like, Jessica, you look like completely different, and I think it's funny because he said her muscular monstrosity. I was like, what are these words? Oh my God.
He's a linguist.
I was hoping for more words like, dude, she looks lean and jacked and beautiful. Like, can't wait to see her beat someone up. But muscular monstrosity, I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a linguist, man. He's got a way with words, and I agree with you. I think people like to have this conception on who Conor is. I was lucky enough, linked up with Susan Singari in Bare Knuckle News, and I was able to cover Knuckle Mania when they were here in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and my son's been absolutely nuts over it. He actually got to meet him. My daughter got to meet him. Someone who I seen you've been linking up with too, Miss Britton Hart, made sure that all happened. Security was like, oh, they can't go over there. It's a VIP area. She's like, I'm coming. Have a nice day.
Bye. I'm going.
But now you're gonna be 125 down there too, right? So
yes,
we don't have a whole lot of a deeper division like you've been used to in the UFC. What are your kind of overall I guess short-term, long-term goals for bare knuckle in that division?
So short-term goal, right, is let's just, June 21st, that's the short term, right? Like let's see where we feel. Excuse me. Let me see how I feel after this, and we'll see moving forward. Like I mean, I'm excited to do this. I don't like to how do I say this? I'm not trying to reinvent my career all over again, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, I got to redo the 16 fights I had in the UFC and 10 plus years in the UFC. I don't want to redo that. So I think the short-term goal is go out here and win this fight for me, win it for me, win it for all the hard work that I've done for myself, win it for the fans that have stayed supporting me, win it for the people that, you know, have been there for me. Also win one for the mental health survivors and the people that thought that they would never dig themselves out. You know, oddly enough, I've heard some stories about my opponent, and you know, I always respect my opponents. There's no true bad blood. I really just want to go in there and perform. But I think long term is to continuously work towards a life that I love the most. And if bare knuckle happens to help me get that, then so be it. You know, I'm willing to lay these fists and, you know, my face on the line. Plus, we all know I'm a great excuse my, I'm a great effing striker, right? This is like up my wheelhouse, right? This is totally, there ain't no takedowns, there's no kicks, you know,
Yeah.
and you know,
It's
this is
getting back to
definitely
the
up what I like.
purity of what you fell in love with combat sports to begin with. So
Yes, was striking, you know. I mean, it was funny. There's this old documentary that we did years ago. It was called Fight for Your Life, and it's still up on YouTube. And it was so funny. One of my friends had like seen it and they pulled it up. And it's crazy to think back even to then. I wanted to go to the Olympics. I wanted to go to boxing. I had the choice between going to boxing back then in that time, like we're talking early 2009, 2010, the opportunity to either go boxing or go MMA. It was like what was going to be that, you know, what was going to be best, and we decided to go to MMA cuz had times been reversed, right? 25-year-old Jessica, now I'd be boxing. I'd be like, screw it, I'm boxing. I'd be up there fighting girls like Alicia Baumgartner. I'd be up there in MVP fighting all those girls. And which I'm glad the sport is where it is, but
yeah.
you know, shoulda,
And,
coulda, woulda. We'll just
and,
take it
and
one
it's
time.
interesting you bring up MVP and the I guess the Paul promotion we'll call it, because it's obviously his promotion. But I mean, we can say a lot of things about Jake, good, bad, or indifferent. But I think the one thing he's absolutely gotten right was getting behind Amanda Serrano, and you know, kind of listening to her a little bit, and really developing what they're doing with the female divisions. They've signed a whole lot of people. You just mentioned Alicia Baumgartner. Obviously, the news of
Holly, they signed Holly, which is
yeah,
great.
and that's what I was just gonna say. They just signed Holly Holm, who she's made it clear that she wants to go after a belt in another weight class. You know, she used to fight heavy when she was in boxing. When she went to the UFC, it was the first time she went down to 35. So she wants to go after one of those lighter weight division belts, become a 3 or 4 division champion. It's one of those things. It's one of those things, man. You already know how it is when I go to. I always love supporting the female combat sports athlete. I don't feel you guys get enough love, no matter what. I mean, hell, we just had ESPN do a top list, and they're keeping Gina Carano off because of their personal indifferences. It's the most funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, but you should know how this sport is, and you know
Yeah.
well enough is that people pick and choose, and unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. That's where something is like, I can say this much, like us as fighters, at least me in this time, is like I'm happy with me, right? If ESPN or if I never make it to the UFC Hall of Fame or anything like that, that's okay. I still know where I came from. I still know what I did. They can't deny me as one of the founding mothers of women's mixed martial arts.
Yeah,
I know that.
I mean, I laugh because it's like Gina Carano crawled so Ronda Rousey can run, but let's keep her off the list, right?
Well, I mean, to be honest, the original girls, as far as I'm concerned, are Debbie Purcell, right? Women like Debbie Purcell, Tara LaRosa, Gina Carano, Cyborg. You know what I mean? Like, those are the original ones, right? Those were the ones that we saw. And then again, girls like Jan Finney, Misha Tate, right? Who, Misha's still competing, but we had all these other women that were doing it years ago.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think, but.
And we mentioned Kristen. What do you think about her, man? She's still doing her thing in PFL. She just had another big knockout win in boxing. her still competing at this high level, and still doing it like regardless of the haters, Dana hate, UFC hate, however you kind of want to go with, like all the negative contractors that surrounded her, she continues to win.
Yeah, she continues to win and she does what she wants. I mean, I feel like, when you start letting the haters control you, and get inside your brain and inside your heart, then they control everything. And in all reality, Cyborg is still collecting paychecks, still winning fights, still doing what she loves, and everybody's still watching. So, I mean, she's doing something right.
Yeah. And I'd be remiss in you've already kind of touched on it a few times. We're still in Mental Health Awareness Month, right? And
Oh yeah.
you've already kind of touched on it a little bit. I've been making sure, like regardless of who I'm talking to, we've kind of been beating on this drum, regardless of if I'm talking to former NFL players, current fighters, past fighters, whatever. We, as you said, we all have our demons, our dark days, weeks, months, sometimes years. What are something you would tell to somebody who's kind of struggling, going through it? Like what if you were having a conversation with somebody? What would you try to do to kind of bring them to a place where they can maybe reach out to somebody who they haven't, or seek some help in some way, shape, or form to put them in front of somebody who could help them?
I think that first and foremost, it's hard to ask for help, right?
Yeah.
It's really hard to ask for help, and we've put this stigma on it. Thank goodness, we're in a time where people are willing to speak out a little bit more. My biggest advice, right? If somebody was talking to me and I'm trying to help them to be more powerful themselves, obviously I'm going to give them encouraging words. But what I'm going to say to them is, what if I told you that there's knowledge out there that you have to seek for yourself because you have to want it? Like with mental health, it's no different than an addiction. You have to be aware of what you're dealing with so that you can address it. For me, one of the biggest thing was understanding cognitive behavior therapies for myself and understanding why I made the decisions I was making. Were they truly authentic to who I was, or were they based upon the trauma that had happened to me, that I make my decisions based upon that? And CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, was probably one of the best things that I ever did. I mean, I would say it's every human being probably could use a little bit of cognitive behavior therapy, regardless if you feel like you're dealing with mental health at all in general, and I think unfortunately for us fighters, we would be being naive if we didn't think that there wasn't a little traumatic brain injury, right? Like there's traumatic brain injury to all of us, right? I got a black eye. It didn't just show up on its own. I was punched in my face. So on those days that I have heavier training sessions, or like say I was dealing with a football player, or maybe a young football player, I would say to them, hey, you took some head trauma. Let's up your creatine to 10 milligrams today, right? Because that's going to help recover the brain. But then also, let's make sure that we're thinking about how we're feeling, right? So then again, that goes to cognitive behavior therapy. So for me, that was really the biggest thing. Like I said, supplementing, actual true supplements that we can do to help build our brain and make it more healthy. Because right, our brain is a muscle, right? It needs nutrients. You can't just sit there and read something like, oh, my brain is healthy. No, you have to ingest things. You have to take in supplements that your body can get in your bloodstream to take it back to your brain, right? The extra stuff does help, right? But and the last thing I would say is, don't be afraid to talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be necessarily a psychologist. It could be any type of therapist, but I will say this much: make sure there's someone outside of your circle, someone that maybe does have some type of education behind them, right? Doesn't have to be everything's like, oh, I gotta go sit and lay on the couch and stare at the ceiling, and now I'm gonna be on drugs, and they're gonna put me on medicine, and they're gonna diagnose me with something. Don't even think about it that way. Maybe if you would just go talk to someone, you might be able to help yourself a little bit more.
Now we're talking about traumatic brain injuries and things of that nature. Have you been seeing some of these other combat sports that are coming out lately? Obviously, we all seen Dana White's slap fighting, right? We've seen that. Have you seen this one, Run It?
No, what is that?
basically it's down there in New Zealand. It's basically like rugby guys running at each other full speed. I'm like, so
Do they got to push them out of certain? So is it
no?
glorified?
It's not like no. It's like rugby players running like two football players full speed with no padding, no nothing.
Wow.
I'm like,
you know what? That's crazy. It's crazy. No, I've not seen it. I've not.
And then obviously, the newest thing is inside of your own new promotion. Obviously, them doing Ice Wars. They're June 14th.
I had no idea about
So,
that.
all right, Ice Wars was a thing. 3-4 years ago, they were trying to make it happen. It is actually sanctioned now. BKFC is kind of doing this thing. They're doing a Battle of the Borders thing. They're going to do one June 14th in Michigan, and then another one June 28th in Canada.
What do they do? It's
basically it's a rink, but I just had the one guy, Zach Hughes, on. I'm going to have another guy on this weekend. Helmet has to be on that's taped on it, but if it gets knocked off, stoppage, they do that. Now remember, anyone who watched Mighty Ducks, right? Remember, Stick Love shirt, right? There's a thing so you can't pull the jersey over top of the head and things.
No, over the head.
But yeah, it's sanctioned, as rules. Brian Kelleher has actually joined in on it, so you're gonna have some former UFC guys in there. I'm interested to see how it goes. I mean, obviously, Dave Feldman, Conor McGregor, all the other owners that are a part of it signed up for this thing, got behind it, and we are as of I think of a few days ago, they've added Nebraska to another places that it's now sanctioned in. So it's making moves.
Well, maybe retired hockey players now have a place to go, right? They're gonna that'll be their, hey, that might keep some of what is it, the farm teams, like if you're NHL, what is the league below?
AHL.
Right? Like maybe that'll keep those guys extra busy, make them some extra money or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we already know like ice hockey's, professional, NHL, AHL, even down in the juniors and stuff like that. They've been going away from a lot of things that made what we call old time hockey now. What made that hockey special, because you had a special way to kind of police things. They're obviously is still fighting involved in the sport and things of that nature, but you always had guys on the team you knew was the enforcer. You knew they were out there to throw their body around and when needed or called upon to drop the gloves and do the thing. Now we get to see guys who specifically that's what they do. They have a place to go. So now we got bare knuckle ice hockey, or ice fighting rather.
Yeah, you know what? I think that we're in such an innovative time, right? Like the world, everybody's trying new things, and if it takes off, like let's go with it. If there's a lane, baby, take off. So I mean, you gotta love it. People are really trying new stuff. I mean, it's wild. I prefer, I'll say the least. Like, right, bare knuckles probably as extreme as I'm gonna go. I think once I'm done with fighting, I might go more to my maybe figure out like that high rocks. Have you seen those competitions? They're like CrossFit, but better ones. Competitions for people. They're called high rocks.
No, I haven't heard about that. I got nasty. Now you got to make me look that up when we get done with this.
No, that's more like physical fitness and running and like lunges, and that's more of my that's something I like to do.
Yeah.
It takes most of these guys, these pros, it takes them an hour. So imagine working out for an hour straight. I'm like, sounds like an MMA practice.
Yeah, pretty much a full-on MMA practice. You start off, wrestling, you get into some striking, then you're doing then you're doing
lifts, then you're literally doing high waist lifts, and then you're doing push-ups to get up, and then you're throwing punches. So yeah, it might work.
So and now, speaking of keeping of things along them lines, the new craziness that is going on. Obviously, combat sports has grown so much since we got in there. It's every weekend now compared to when we were waiting, almost a month between big events and things of that nature. Where it doesn't matter where you are in the world now, there's something going on every weekend, or even multiple events throughout a weekend. You have some promotions are doing it Friday nights, another one Saturday night, and then you got another one Sunday night. It's like, for the combat sports fan, it's we're at the Mecca now, right?
Yeah, well, and you're seeing, like, look at Mike Perry and John Jones. They're
Yep.
DBX, right?
Yeah, they're doing dirty boxing. Yep.
They're getting ready to have their second event, which I would absolutely do that. I would, all day long. That's striking with elbows all day. I would absolutely do that. Like stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. But it's nice to see the fighters, like UFC fighters and people like that, come back into the industry. That's what we need, right? Like, we need us to come back in the industry some way, somehow, on some level. And what I think we're seeing happening is, a part of the reason that these leagues are taking off like that is because these guys have a fan base and they want to follow them. And that's kind of their style, right? Like, those are the things that they do. You know what I mean? Like, so I feel like that's awesome to see that, right? Like, to see other athletes in this industry come back into the industry and help back out on some level. So, like, guys like John Jones and Mike Perry, like, of course they would start up a league like that. Like, it is absolutely fitting, and I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it is. We're at a special time for the growth of it, but I've been sitting there saying this for about a year and a half now. I think the UFC is in a real problem right now. They're not getting the personalities they used to crank out like 10 or 15 fighters, a year through the Ultimate Fighter that fans were invested with. They had personalities. There was something that was fun about them to make people want to tune in, outside of just having a title fight or just having this, that, or the third. Where a lot, and then some of those guys and girls that we're talking about are either retiring, they're going to other promotions. You see a lot of the fighters, make it over their way to BKFC, to bare knuckle. Some are going to boxing, as you're talking about. You have guys like Mike Perry not only competing in BKFC but starting his own things of that nature. You think that's kind of one of the bigger reasons why you're hearing rumblings that the UFC is going to be going away from the pay-per-view model?
You know what? I'll say this much. Like, the UFC, if it went away from the pay-per-view model, it would finally reach the success that it always wanted to, like the MLB, like the NA, like these publicly such big companies. They don't have to use the pay-per-views. They don't need it. They're already raking in so much money from so many other levels. To me, that would be the pinnacle of, like, where fighting would be. I think what, unfortunately, I was even having this conversation with someone recently, because they said, well, some people are just fighting in BKFC. I said, I understand. People love BKFC. People love even the other fight leagues. But I think that we are still forgetting that the one place everybody wants to go is the UFC. Whether or not that's at one fight or at least try it, everybody wants to go there. It's kind of still at the top in that way. And granted, it's getting a run for its money. And I love that, for just the sense of the good competition, right? I originally came from Bellator, right? I was in Bellator in the early years, right? And it was that was the healthy promotion for fighters to go to both places. You need that competition. But I think that what's going to happen is if the UFC did go away from that, I feel like at that point, the UFC will have truly reached its fullest level of meaning, like, we're a fully public owned company, right? People can see our books. We're not even really worried about it anymore. Now people have to do what we want, because now there is no pay-per-view buys, right? Fighters, less money for fighters, right? On the actual events, but maybe more money for them on a whole, in the sense of, instead of being 8,000 when you get in the UFC, we could at least see these people making 20 grand if you at least make it there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So somehow, some way, whether or not that means the big guys, there's no longer these big popular names, like you're saying, that feed these pay-per-views, right? Then that's going to take the pay rate up, right? Because now they're not going to have to pay these guys pay-per-view points.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So at that point, right, it'll just be like, the UFC will just be on, right? Just like sometimes football's on and people be like, oh, I'll watch that game, right? I'm a Browns fan, so I'm watching every game, right? Regardless, win, lose, or draw. I'm not necessarily watching some of the other games, right? Sometimes I don't, right? You know what I mean? But sometimes I'm not. I'm just like, oh yeah, fuck it, let me turn it on. Let's see how the Patriots are beating up on the Chiefs this time, right? Like, maybe I have fantasy, right? Which people might do. They might start drafting fighters to build teams, right? To win money, right? That would make it easier, right? You're not really worried about it, but I don't know. I mean, that's just me like kind of talking crazy, but I think that it's not a bad thing, you know,
No, I
right?
don't think it is. I don't think it is. Like, I think what you touched on is kind of right, because that's where they've always wanted to be. The pay-per-view model was the way that they made.
That's the boxing model, baby. That's boxing.
It basically
that was boxing.
Was.
That was always boxing. I remember we used to have the pay-per-views for boxing matches. You know what I mean? Like those were the big parties. You know what I mean? Like those were the ones to go to, not the UFC ones, you know?
And then you've already touched on it. I gotta come back here, right? So NFL is in a special place. Well, let's talk about your Brownies for a second, man. Because I think right now, you know, we've talked about this before in the past. You guys have been cursed at the quarterback position, right? Now you literally have a crowded room full of guys that are competing. You got Joe Flacco there. You just brought in Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh / Philadelphia. You know, depending on where you want to kind of see him come from.
Yeah,
two quarterbacks, let alone Deion Sanders' son with the late round pick, who's probably the more popular of the four. And you still have a fifth guy there taking up way too much money.
They're so greedy.
What are your overall thoughts on your Browns, my friend?
They're greedy with their quarterbacks, and we abuse quarterbacks. Like, I feel like if I was a quarterback, I'd be like, I'm never going to the Browns, right? They're going to abuse me. Between the fans, first of all, I've said this from the beginning. The franchise and the fans put way too much on the quarterback. They have. We literally put way too much. The person we didn't put the most pressure on was Flacco, because nobody expected him to do that good. They already had expectation. Like, these guys, he ain't been playing. He's been Flacco off the couch. You know what I mean? He's not really doing it, but then he comes in and kills it. And then we get rid of him. And then we get rid of him for the dumpster fire of an issue that we dealt with, right? Of all of the stuff that happened, which is, again, exactly what we don't need. We need like a quiet quarterback. Like, as much as they try to pull it out, we almost need like a coy guy that's like kind of like, thank you. Great. Right. Who doesn't feed into it, because as soon as anybody starts feeding into it, right, then they try to find controversy. If you've done anything wrong and you're a quarterback and you came to Cleveland, the world's going to know about it. Right. So they're going to find it and they're going to exploit it. So when it comes down to that, I'm like, we've always had an issue with, we've always had great special teams. We've always had, like, our defenses have definitely always been a struggle to protect our offensive line, but our defense has always been pretty decent. Yeah. I think that when it boils down to it, is like, we need to develop a young guy, right? Bring him on the team, right? Get him on there. Like, Sanders' son's already been he's been playing for a while, right?
Well, Shedeur Sanders, you guys just stole from the draft, basically, because people were not happy with his interviews. He's Deion Sanders' son, and they're talking he's too cocky. I'm like, wait, what? He's Deion Sanders' son. I remember
everybody was like, they were good. I'm like, oh, he's too experienced, or oh, blah, 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 he's too cocky, he's too much of this. And it's like, maybe that's what we need, because like, maybe that might be better for us.
I think you guys gave up on Baker Mayfield a little too fast. I know, like, he had a few rough years. He had injuries. As you already said, you guys have not had good offensive line play since Joe Thomas left.
Yeah. Well, that you have no good offensive line, right? So then you're putting all the pressure on the quarterback. The O-line doesn't get in trouble. The O-line does not get in trouble when the quarterback gets sacked. The quarterback looks like he's a pansy. He got sacked because he didn't get rid of the ball fast enough. And that's not fair. In all reality, you got to give him at least 10 seconds. Give him more than 3 seconds than what you're giving him to get the ball out of there, and see, like, how fast that is. He's literally catching the ball. He's like, oh God, I'm hit. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Give him at least 6 seconds, something. So I think maybe a guy like Sanders' son, like, would be somebody to be out. Like, he's got the experience, like, he's got the knowledge behind him, right? So that would be nice. But I think a guy like Flacco, like, go put Flacco out there. Let him stabilize the team. Let him help get the team kind of flowing. And then, hey, these are the next steps, right? Like, this is what I can help you with, right? Like, to kind of rewind it, have you ever watched Enigma with Aaron Rodgers? Is that it, right? Is it called Enigma?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
The documentary he did about.
No, I haven't seen that one. No.
You got to watch it, right? Because there's a part of this, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is it's not about the psychedelic part, which I think everybody research about that. Jordan Poyer was an old Browns guy, was so proud of him for doing stuff. But he literally, Aaron Rodgers speaks about it, about how when he came over, how like Favre really wasn't welcoming to him, right? Like it took him so long, right? And that's why, dude, I mean, how many years did Aaron Rodgers sit below
I think
Favre?
it was more than 3 years.
Yes, I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years that he sat under, right? But nobody like he was so afraid to tell him because of what his job was going to be taken. That Aaron has talked about that in the documentary about being there for people and how it would have been so much nicer to have somebody help him in transition. So you got to take these amazing quarterbacks, right? Now, granted, they're like, this is my money. I'm not losing my money. You got to find that. You got to find that guy. You know what I mean? That's going to say, hey, look, you know, I'm on the end of my career. I want to help this young man move it along.
Yeah, I think you have a good nucleus of guys that can help. Not just Shedeur Sanders, but the guy they drafted in front of him. I forget his name; it's escaping me right now. But I mean, he literally was, you know, won the FCS championship. He was one of the better college quarterbacks over the last few years. You have 2 young guys, and then you have multiple different veterans that can coach them up. And like, listen, I get, like, it's always going to be a competition in the quarterback room, but it doesn't have to be like, I'm not helping you steal my job, kid. I'm not doing, like, listen, you guys are all in the league now. You're all under the shield. You should be helping each other. And it's something I talk about. We talk about it on my other podcast that I have with Ben Troop is that your mentor is in the room, and he wants to, when I go out there, if I get hurt, if I move on, I want you to ball out. I want you to be the best you could be. Mm-hmm. And then you have these old boy guys like Brett Favre who are just like, I'm not going to help this kid. He's here for my job.
Exactly.
No, he's already in the building. It doesn't matter if he's here for your job. You need to make sure he's prepared for, God forbid, if you're not going to be on the field.
Yeah, I think that it goes back to sports, because I can say this much: since being removed from the UFC, I've gotten so much closer with the females in the UFC that we, like my sisters, so to speak, and that way we've gotten so much closer and we support each other, and it's just by nature a part of the beast, and it's so unfortunate. But for roles to be reversed now, like especially when it comes to football, and like, dude, you guys are making millions, all right? Like, listen, you need to cut the shit, all right? You need as a head coach be like, look. Right, like that. I feel like that should be a head coach talk. Like, you pull Flacco off the side and like, Flacco, man, we're gonna take care of you as a franchise, but we need your help, and that's what we're paying for. We're not paying to win the Super Bowl. We're paying for you to help us help our guys, you know, get set. Like, help us, like pay a someone like that, a franchise, you know, player like that, just to be there, just to be on the team. Just to be a part of these guys and be talking.
I think that's what you're hitting on. You have to have that true pro veteran that, like, listen, we're, as you're saying, we're not paying you for who you were. We're paying you to help bring these guys along and help them develop.
You know what's crazy is you look at some of those guys that have retired. If you went back and said to them in 20 years, like, hey man, would you go, if you could go back to 20 years ago, would you have stayed on staff just so you could help a younger guy? I guarantee you all of them say yeah. They're like, if I could have 5 more years out of my career just to be with them and helping somebody, because now it's completely gone and removed from their life. So you have to wage that, right? My involvement, right? Like still inside the sport, you know? So, I mean, I feel like we'll see, right? Like, I'm excited to see what this year is going to make of it. You know, Flacco is a good guy. He's consistent. At least bring him in there. And again, hopefully they're having that kind of conversation with him. And hopefully he's at that point where he's like, look, dude, I've made my millions. You guys are paying me for what I know, not what I do, you know, on the field. Let me teach these young boys how to do that.
I think you're right. I think it's partially that, but I also think, you know, that it's like, it's a security blanket for, you know, Kenny Pickett doesn't work out, or you know, you already know that Watson isn't going to see the field. I think they're trying to waiting for the right time money wise to let him walk and get away from that. But yeah, I think those group of guys are there to mentor and develop the 2 draft picks they have. But I think the biggest win of your offseason was keeping Myles Garrett there. Oh
my gosh, thank goodness, man. I was literally at the gym Because we were supposed to fight in bare knuckle 3 different times. We were supposed to fight in Dubai. We were supposed to fight in Salt Lake City. We just couldn't. Opponents were falling through something on their end. I'm not really sure why. We were ready. But I was at the gym the one day and I'm literally watching it. And obviously Miles Garrett always trains with strong style, my family and those guys out there. And a part of me was watching and I'm like, man, he's gonna leave. Like, and I don't blame him. But then it was so funny when they were like, bam, how about this lob of cash? How do you feel now? And he's like, yeah, I'll stay.
We were talking on my show, and some of the rumors were going around, and like they were linking him to Philadelphia. And my coach like, listen, if y'all get Myles Garrett, it's cheating. I'm gonna turn the TV off. I'm not even gonna watch football next year because it's cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with him, like to a point, like that. If we would have managed to pull off a trade to make that happen, it was going to be cheating because that's just the rich getting even richer at that point in time.
You know what's crazy is that the Browns have the money to be able to pay for. They have the money, which is crazy, right? Because we're sitting there watching them throw these money at these players, and it's like the franchise has the money, right? Why is the team not getting better? So there's something, right? Like, how are we throwing out this much money to these players, these individual players, but not like, we got guys like Miles.
You're not seeing it on the field.
How do we have this many good guys on a team, but nobody's meshing together? Now we have Flacco, we have, Njoku, we have, Myles Garrett, Chubbs is back, right? Like, so we have these good guys. Why are we not pulling out our heavy hitters and our good guys and being like, guys, I don't know. We got offensive, defense. We got you guys together, special teams. We gotta bring everybody to the same level. You guys have been on the Browns for long enough. Help us bring the team together.
Yeah, it's changing the culture, and that's probably the hardest thing to kind of do. Like to have the talent to know, like, listen, looking not just the dollars, just looking at the talent in the room. Like, listen, we should be a 10, 12 win team. What's going on here, guys? Why is this not becoming that? And you see it in other franchises and other leagues. It doesn't matter if we're talking NFL or whatever. Just you have to have the culture to get everyone on the same page, and that's the hardest thing to do. Regardless if we're talking, 52 men in football, if we're talking, 20 some odd guys in baseball, whatever. It's the hardest thing to do in a team sport is getting everyone to come in for the collective.
Yeah, I guess that's what makes sports fun for us, and that's what makes us fans, is we like seeing them figure it out, and we take the heartbreaking losses with them.
Yep. I'm glad I haven't had some heartbreaks over the last. I mean, we've had some heartbreaks, but two Super Bowls in 7 years, I can't complain.
I mean, you can't. You can't. You really can't. You really.
Now, I want to get one more before we get ready to kind of wrap this one up. It's the goofy one that everyone's been talking about lately. The gorillas versus the 100 guys. First off, why is this a thing? And if you had a choice, who would your 100 people be?
Oh my gosh, I don't know why this is a thing, and I literally laugh at it because I'm like, do you guys have any idea? Like, the gorilla wins, right? I mean, I don't even know.
They're like, he gets tired. I'm like, what? After he splits 200 people in half?
Oh, he's not getting tired. The amount of testosterone that runs through that thing at a consistent, like, he's not getting tired. Like, he's just like bonk, 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 bonk. He's gonna be hitting people left and right. But if I guess I had to choose a top couple big guys, as crazy as these things are going to sound, I'm going to pick like guys like The Rock because he's big, right? So he's probably durable, right? Stipe because he can move and he's a big guy, right, too. Let me see who else. Some other big guys. Gosh, I don't know. Like, those are like, I'm trying to think when I sit down to it. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe Boogit could be because he's a good wrestler.
You gotta have some people to tie them down.
Wait a minute. So let me make sure. Is this everybody at one time, or is this?
See, it's individual. Not like a one-on-one thing. When I guess this whole thing became a thing, it's 100 men or people versus a silverback gorilla. I'm like, just listen, man.
Dude,
like,
you can't get up.
Whoever the first 20 people are, you're gonna be in trouble because he's gonna. You can
barely get 20 people to agree in a room about one thing. You think you're getting 100 people to come up with the same game plan to beat them up? Everybody, our nature of our environment is I have 50 people are going to be arguing. Another 10 are not going to want to do it. Maybe the other 40 are like, heck, we want to do this. And then 5 people are going to be like, we got it without you. And then they're dead. So unfortunately, I don't even know that 100 people could make the job get done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on this. I think it's ridiculous, but it's the news cycle of the world. You have I think it was just touched on in one of these new football players podcasts. I'm like, I like our team's chances to be able to do this. I'm like, listen, you guys got a great team with a bunch of big guys on it. I still don't think we get the job done. I really don't think I don't think people understand the true power that one of those things have. That's like sitting there saying, a gorilla and a grizzly bear versus 1,000 people. I'm still taking those two
10 people
animals
versus one shark. Good luck. 10 people versus one shark. Okay, guys, good luck. You don't know which section it's coming from, right? Like that thing will bite your freaking leg off in a second. Like a gorilla would just be like, your arm, like floss, just break it.
Yeah,
No
I'm
way.
taking the gorilla no matter what. It's just,
Me too.
I love our race, but there might be 10 people who could potentially take a pop from one of them, but like I said, he's gonna rip through the first 10, and you're probably gonna have like 20 people run off just because, like, listen, I'm good, I'm out, I'm tapping
That's
out.
what I'm saying, right? That group of 50 I was talking about that's arguing the whole time, right? We'll lose about half of them because they're like, get sick of arguing and back. All right, I'm not doing it anyways.
But I mean, it's good banter for the news,
Yeah.
so to speak. But as always, Jess, love catching up with you. Love picking your brain. I absolutely cannot wait for your fight here. I'm going to pull the poster up again. June 21st, BKFC 46 or 76 in Texas.
76.
I mean, how excited are you at this point? I'm obviously, we're still a month away. A lot can change. You can definitely could have an opponent change. You never know if you already spoken about it or haven't things fall through. But how excited are you for everything you've been through, everything that's happened in your past, good, bad, indifferent. We're gonna get to go in there and have that walk, because it's something I've talked about with some of the fighters. It is intoxicating, the energy in a combat sports walkout. Like we talk about it all the time, regardless if you're talking how crazy boxing was over the years, but like even in MMA, just being able to feel the energy of the crowd, it's almost like the only thing I can compare it to is college football, just because of the energy. The energy in a college football arena. Is it one of those things that's probably the biggest thing you're going to be looking forward to? Is that adrenaline rush, feeling the energy of the crowd?
No, gosh, what's going to be the greatest thing about it is like my 2 coaches, Zeke and Zach, that I formated down here. These 2 guys, man, to be honest, like, no, I'm looking forward to seeing them smile and seeing how happy they are, because they put so much energy into this. And, I'm their first professional fighter that they've ever got to corner at that high of a level. And we all been really looking forward to this. So this is kind of like, everybody's going to get to see it and be excited to share with me, but this means so much to us. And I'm so fortunate for that. Like, I got an ex-Marine vet who has been through so much in this world that makes me feel like I ain't been through shit. And then I have this amazing, it was a professional baseball player. His career got cut short. For me to be able to go out there and just kind of all the energy they're putting into me, I can't wait to like give it back. Like that makes me happy, right? So I'm excited to do that.
That's always been your personality too, Jessica. It's one of the things that I love about you. Just don't ever change that. You're always about what you can give back to somebody else, even when you're having one of your moments, and all you can think about is what the moment that you're gonna have with somebody else, not what you're actually doing.
Yeah, they've given me a lot. Their souls, their energy, they've been giving me so much. I'm really fortunate for that. And, it's been great. I love living in Florida. So I can't wait to come home and be able to know I'm coming home to the beach. So
Well, I mean, the change in scenery, the life changes, the putting everything in perspective, and kind of getting a second go at this is always going to be something I'm sure that there's not a dollar amount that you could probably put on that. So
There really
as
isn't.
always, best of skill for you in this coming fight. Hopefully everything kind of goes the way you hand it. And you know how I typically end this. I kind of throw the floor over to you, my friend. Anyone you would like to thank, shoot out your training partners, shoot out your coaches, any sponsors you might have, let everyone know where to follow you on social media, and any other messages you want to send out to the people. Jessica, the time is yours, my friend.
Yeah, so obviously you can follow me on all social networks at Jessica Evil Eye. I want to give a huge shout out to Elia, the Soul Snatcher. She owns Level Up Boxing with her coach. They have Britain Hart trains there and have given me a huge warm welcome to come down there and train and use the gym at my leisure. So, thank you so much to, all of them. But to one of my lifelong sponsors is finally allowed to come back on board because of no more outfitting, but the longtime sponsor of always is Chico Stick, who is a Lufkin, Texas company, one of the best candies you're ever going to have. But they're coming back on board. Chico Stick, you guys should check them out because my punches are packed full of peanut power, and I get that from my Chico Sticks. I guess my biggest message to everybody who's just, watching and following, you're a fan. I appreciate all your love and support. Self-belief is better than social disapproval in such a hard influence world through social media. Make sure you're centered within yourself and believe in who you are so that the world can't change who you are inside your own head. And heck yeah, man, I can't wait for June 21st. This is going to be fun.
I'm definitely excited. You always know that you got a house full of supporters here in the Rochelle household. So
of course,
as always, my friend, best of skill. Appreciate the time. All the love in the world. We'll definitely catch up, win, lose, or draw after this, my friend. All right.
That's right, babe. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's always a pleasure, my friend. You have a good one. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thanks.
All right, everyone. That was the one and only Miss Jessica Evil Eye. It is always a pleasure picking her brain, catching up with her. One of the more inspiring stories in life in general. Just, love who she is as a person, what she stands for, and everything in between is just the icing on the cake, my friend. So, guys, please make sure if you're in the Texas area when it comes to June 21st, head over, buy some tickets. Check out the stream if you're not able to kind of go there. Dazen is going to be one of the people doing the streaming services for that. Other than that, another fun episode of the Real and the Rare, and it was definitely a real and rare interview this evening with Miss Jessica Evil Eye. Other than that, I will be back very shortly, people. See you guys soon, and we'll be back for more fun interviews here on the Florida Sports Tribune Media Network, both for the Real and the Rare, for parting shots, and we got another big week of interviews for the Fan in the End. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, share with your friend, your aunt, your uncle, your grandmother. I'm Steve Rochelle. This is another episode. We'll catch you later, folks.